Good morning and welcome to a very special edition of Spiritual Health. You will find today's topics most intriguing, engrossing, and um, I dare say you will be unable to look away as Doc and I delve into some spiritually related topics. Um, as usual, we have Doc with us, the keeper of the knowledge, the library of information that seems to know no bounds. So good morning, Doc.
Good morning,
And
Saka.
so today we're getting into the esoteric, should I say?
Well, let's put it this way. The time space that
Yes.
we are allotted by the Spiritual Baptist Organization. And so I think it's good sometimes to do the generosity due
Diligence, yes.
or the honor, you know.
Yes.
So today we're going to start, and we're going to start with things. One of the things that happened, you know, I was looking at television the other day. You get a little chance sometime to sneak a little look. That's quite rare. And there's a channel that shows only westerns, right? And they show little shorts, and they're showing a short of a Indian coming home, and grandfather, he's asking the grandfather about everybody, and that one died, and that one was massacred, and that one was this. He says, well, I hate the white man, you know, and the grandfather says, we of the old people, mightn't be the exact words, think that everything is alive. The rocks, the earth, the plants, everything is alive, and everything should be paid due reverence and due honor. And so what you attempt to do is you attempt to live in concert, in agreement with the rules of the universe. And when you do that and you fit into the rules of the universe, you find that people who live like that have a whole totally different aspect to the way they live, you know. We have gone along and we've invented science, and now we pay homage to this science, and we think that that is the only thing, and that anybody who doesn't have an appreciation of this science is in fact ignorant or stupid.
Yes, yes. I've come across that attitude before.
But you see, what the science has done is that the deeper aspects of the science is totally ignored or hidden, and what you get is literally the crumbs,
Yes.
you know, and real discoveries are certainly hidden,
Yeah.
you know. And so I decided that if we're going to talk about this, we need to start to talk about life from the basics, things that we accept. So I will posit a whole line of thought to get people thinking. And we're going to start with water.
Lovely. Water.
I ain't so sure if what we have in this bottle we could define as water.
Well, a representation there.
Is
A reasonable
a
facsimile.
polluted representation of water, because it has negative effects as it is. But we get caught up in doing things, and we end up drinking it even though we know that part of it is not good.
Well, it's healthier than the soft drink at any point.
It's interesting, it's a soft drink. So back about 20-25 years ago, there was a guy doing a lot of work on water, a guy called Emoto,
Yes.
Japanese.
Massimo Emoto.
Yes, and he came to some really, really interesting discoveries. If you have water and you freeze the water, if the water is pure,
Yes.
you know, you put it on a flat thing so you could see it. It forms pretty hexagonal crystals.
Yes.
Or if you have lived abroad during the winter, when there's pure water coming on without smog, and you look at it, it forms all these really precise, extremely precise, repeating shapes.
Yes.
Yeah, the hexagonal shapes. And you look at it and you say, there must be some rhythm in the universe,
Yes.
right?
Divine order.
Divine order.
Yes.
And the thing about it is that it forms a hexagonal shape, which in terms of the theory of numbers, forms your 3 dimensions, time, your future 5, and then the space that operates, which is 6.
Okay.
So you have 3 dimensions, but you have 6 directions of space.
Right.
In order to for life to exist, it has to be in 3 dimensions.
Okay.
But
so
for
that is
you
up,
to,
down,
but
forward, back.
yes, for you to know where you are, you have to define it in a certain amount of directions, and all those directions must pass through you, so you could define where you are relative to everything else.
Right. And then you have the aspect of time.
That's the magic number 6. Now, when 6 moves forward relative to your consciousness, and how do you know that it moves forward?
Should you measure the passage of time? No?
With time. You walk straight into that one. Didn't
Yes, I did. Yeah.
you? So think about it. What is time? What do we use to say that time has passed?
Memory.
No. Think about it. How do you know it's morning?
The procession of the heavenly bodies, which would be the sun.
You're giving me all kind of technical things. The sun. The sun comes up over the horizon,
Yeah.
and according to its progress during the sky, we define that as time.
Yeah.
So we are taking our 6 directions of space, which we have located where we're standing,
Yeah.
and we use something that is moving to give us a perception of time. Not only does it give us a perception of time, it also gives us a reference, because it also brings light.
Right.
The sun brings light,
Yes.
and we are bodies of light.
Yes.
And the medium which we, as a bodies of light, act with the sun, which is a exudation of light, is via water.
All right. Let's do that again. So we are bodies of light,
Yes.
and
Existing in a fixed space.
right.
And we have to have food to exist.
Yes.
We have to have an input of energy to exist.
Right.
The main input of energy that we have is light and air.
Yeah. Right.
There are people who reach a point in their life where they exist only on light and air.
Right.
They don't even eat.
Yeah. The sun eaters and the people who
The Breatharians.
Breatharians.
Right.
Yeah.
So we who down at the bottom of the pile would laugh at that as you stuff chicken and
Yeah.
chips in your guts, you know. And they're talking madness, man.
And you have a shorter and shorter lifespan. Yes. Yeah.
So you get to a point where you say, we have, as consciousness, an intimate connection to things. But the only thing that would store energy easily and make use of that energy from the sun is water.
Right. So water holds the charge.
Water holds the charge.
Right. Now,
So-
as we were talking about the feeding of the light and the air,
Uh-huh.
I know that in the spiritual Baptist community, when we go to fast or we go to the morning ground, it's a period of fasting, and a lot of testimonies would come out that they didn't feel hungry, that they felt, satisfied and filled during that period. And I would like to think that maybe they were fed on the light and the divine light and the divine air.
Well, that brings us to even more,
Yeah.
I was going to say complex, but it isn't. A more simple definition,
Yes.
which we'll get to.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, back in the 1800s, they had people who did experiments, which you don't see anything about. You find it in the old books.
Yes.
I like to dig up in history.
Yeah.
Guy went and he took up a flask and he bathed it in hot water, he boiled
Sterilized
it
it,
and
yeah.
he sterilized it.
Yeah.
And then he sterilized the cork, and then he took his water and he distilled it, double distilled it, and he poured the distilled water into the flask. He half filled it and he corked it.
Yeah. Right. So that is as clean as you could get.
Yes. And he took it and he put it out in the sun.
Yeah.
And after a week or so, when he looked in there, it had little creatures crawling about inside there.
Spontaneous life.
Spontaneous life.
Yeah.
You don't hear anything about that anymore. Nobody wants us to ask the right questions because we might start digging to find right answers.
The water receiving the light
Is
was able to produce light.
once it holds the light,
Yeah.
then you find that it generates life.
Yes.
It generates the energy of life,
Okay.
right? It is interesting that if you are in a spiritual Baptist ceremony and they've brought the spirit, which is the energy of light,
Yeah.
into the system,
Yeah.
and it begins to get out of hand. What I mean by out of hand? That is so intense that most people can't take it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they'll start to freak out.
Overwhelmed, yeah.
Right. So what they do? What do they do to stop it?
A mother would get up and take a glass and drop 3 drops of water.
Sprinkle some water. Somebody take this thing out.
Yeah.
And immediately it goes shoo,
Quiet it down. Yeah.
sometimes. Once in a while it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So you say, all right, you need water. Now what Mr. Emoto did is he took some water. He was different from other people. And he put his hand over the water and he imagined all kind of dark and nasty thoughts,
Yes.
right? And then he took the water and he froze it.
Yeah.
And it didn't make proper shapes.
Basically it took the charge.
It lost rhythm. It took the charge that he had,
Yeah.
which was against the aspect of life.
Yes.
And I should put it and say loving life,
Yeah.
right? And so it came out distorted. He took the same water, when he took it out, melted it back, and this time he put feelings of love and things like that in it, and he froze it again.
Right.
And all the things came out
Beautiful.
beautiful. So he came to the conclusion that water absorbs energy from around it. Okay? So you could say, well, he was just a queer bird, you know. He was digging up in things and maybe it things so. But we go back a bit more and we go back to the founder of homeopathy back in Germany. And he says, if you have water and you take coffee, which is normally keep you awake, and you grind it up and you melt it into the water, you mix it into the water, right? So you have a standard solution, the most it could take.
Yeah.
And you have 10, let's say you have 10 cc's,
Yeah.
right? And you take 1 cc of that and put it in with 9 cc's of water.
Yeah.
And then you succuss it. You succuss it,
Yeah.
you hold it in your hand and you
Yeah.
bounce it,
Yeah.
making a medicine, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thing. You put it there. And then you take that and you take out 1 cc of that and you combine it. So there's a ×1 dilution, there's a ×2 dilution. But if you do 1/10 and then you do 1/10 of 1/10, it means that this water now have 100th of the power
Yeah.
that this water have.
Yeah.
By the time you get to 3,
Yeah.
there's 1,000th.
Yeah.
4, 1/10,000th.
Yes.
5, you're hitting 1,000,000.
Yeah.
6 million. So we have a water that is 1,000,000 times less coffee in it than this.
Yeah.
If you take that water just before bedtime and you drink it, what do you think would happen?
You stay awake
Cause you to sleep.
because it's asleep. Okay.
So things that had a certain value at the normal strength, when you diluted it down, it had the exactly opposite effect.
Right.
In other words, when the body is processing that, it processes that, and like it uses its whole system to counteract it.
Right.
That's the whole science of homeopathy.
Okay.
So you take things, we understood that in the West because sometimes we take strychnine and we dilute it down.
Okay.
And when you dilute it down, you make it into a medicine. Very, very dilute, parts per million.
Yeah. Okay.
You put it in a bottle and you call it a tonic.
And this in its pure form is a poison.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a small amount of poison
Yeah.
will cause the body to marshal its forces,
Right.
and so when it marshals its forces, it becomes a tonic.
So in the body detects the substance.
Very minute.
I mean, and they say, like, hey, let me gear up.
Yes.
Because it costs more of these fellas coming here.
Yes.
So we can handle them.
Yes. So that poison becomes a tonic. And if you look at a lot of the old medicines that you had, you'll find that it will have minor amounts of arsenic or minor amounts of strychnine and things like that.
Yeah.
And that it worked.
Right.
Okay? So, let me give you a scenario of stupidity.
All right.
We build a dam in Coral.
Yeah.
All right? Now, the dam is around agricultural lands. So the Germans who built it says, ideally for you to get good water from this, you should put a big carbon filter. What does a carbon filter do? It absorbs poisons. Now you notice I didn't say absorb. I said adsorb. The difference between absorb and adsorb is that adsorb, it kind of grabs it and holds it.
Okay.
All right? So it can adsorb plenty more than it absorbs.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a molecular action. So they build this huge filter, and they say all the water that comes out, you pass it through there, which will take out most of the pesticides, most of everything, most of the junk, and you'd come out just like you do at home. You have a carbon filter and a real good one. You put it at the end of your tap.
Yeah. Before it comes out, yeah.
The water purity goes up dramatically,
Yeah.
right? And then they say when you finish with that, take it and put it in a pipe and put it through
Put it through.
the water system.
Yes.
So go from pipe to system.
Yeah.
So from the filter to system,
Yeah.
right? Some smart dude says, no, we won't do that. We will leave the carbon filter to rot. It's still rotting in Wassa, up in the thing. And they put it in the Caroni River. And they put it in the Caroni River coming down, where they're going to collect it when it reaches the end just before the sea.
So it becomes 1,000 times more polluted than it was in the
1,000?
beginning. 1,000,000 times, all right.
Right? So it comes down with all the toxins from the farms and thing coming down, and it reaches Arima, where you have a lead factory, and lead and all kinds of things pour into it, and you bring it down, and it coming down, and all it coming down, you then have all these sewage plants coming down in all these housing developments.
Residential,
Yeah,
gated communities,
oil water with all the medicines that they flush under this thing, and all the toxins and all the soaps and everything.
the statins and the
So you
blood
have,
pressure
you have to
medication,
come to the conclusion that somebody was so stupid they were trying to kill us,
yeah.
right? So it comes down to this water plant, and the thing is to take it and pass it through a sand filter, and then to add stuff to it
Aluminium salt.
and flocculate it. So some of the things would settle out.
Yeah.
The only thing about it is aluminium is inimical to human beings,
Yes.
right? It causes all kinds of problems with brain and memory and all kinds of things like that. And the only thing you could say is, well, somebody must be making money doing that,
Healthcare, drugs. All
right?
Yeah.
So, and then you take that and you put it into the system.
Yeah.
And then you say, we're looking at health.
Right. And they tell you if you drink your rainwater, catch your rainwater off your roof.
It's illegal. No, it's illegal.
Yeah, what's it when this person
So God make rain, and all of a sudden you have a company that telling you, you can't collect the rain.
Yeah.
It's ours. And when it's ours, it just falls into the ground, right? And it gets thrown down the river.
With all the chemicals. Yeah.
Now, if you go to small islands up the West Indies, and you see they have very little rain.
Yeah.
So they have no big reservoir. So every house that you have,
Yes.
right? They have a collection system with a little filter,
It's about going straight into the tank.
and it goes down through the filter and it goes into a tank.
Yeah.
So everybody has a tank that they collect rain. Now, let me ask you a question. If they took everybody in Trinidad and took the water off the roof, put it through a little filter, and put it into, say, let's say you had 6,000 gallons, three 2,000 gallon tanks at the back of your house,
Yeah.
right? How much water do you think you would use from Wassa? A good rainy season?
Zero.
Almost none.
Zero.
If you have a real part of the dry season, because if you have 6,000 gallons of water in your house, you have water for weeks.
Yeah. And by that time, rain will fall and fill it back up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if himself you had a 2 months where you didn't have it, and you use a little bit of water from so the reservoir would almost always be full.
Yes.
You would think that that would be better too, because if you keep your roof clean, right, and you clean your filter, then the water coming down is really pure. On top of that, you could take a little ozone machine, which you could buy in bulk, and collect it to that. So when it comes out, it passes through an ozonator, right,
So
which will clean the water. And then when you drink that and you drink ozone, it will help you to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because it, so just by changing the water system and the way how you collect it would dramatically alter the health, because you put chlorine in the water to clean it, and chlorine is a poison.
Yes.
Regardless of the way you say, it's a poison. So every day you're drinking a little bit of poison because somebody said that's the way to clean the water. If you go to Sweden and places like that, and they, a lot of the times the way how they clean the water is with ozone, not with chlorine.
Right, so they have large plants with ozone generators and stuff
Yes,
that
yes.
they pump the water through there
Yes.
and get it sorted.
So you begin to understand that what we're talking about is we're talking about the seed of life. And the seed of life doesn't only pick up chemicals and things like that, it also picks up charge. You could charge water a certain way, and you could drink that water and it would have a different effect. Shucks, even the spirits are all respect when you charge water and you sprinkle.
Yes.
Right?
Holy water.
Yes. Because in the Catholic Church, when you're going to do a demonic possession and you take your thing with holy water and you do so and you wet the person, boom, boom, and you say, come on, it comes out. It comes out. You say, don't wet me with that, it's burning.
Yes.
So obviously, it has spiritual power. It has material power.
Yeah.
We stay healthy by coming home, at least most of us, and bathing. That's to wash off all the slime and the gunk and things like that
That we collect during the day.
that we collect during the day. So we come to the conclusion that water is the bringer of life.
Yes.
So therefore, water is a connection between God and us spiritually.
Yes. Yes. I can see it.
You can see it?
Yeah, I see it.
So therefore, it means that we really should be careful with it. We should be careful to try and keep it as pure as possible.
Yes.
We should be careful. You ever see, if you have a pond in your yard, right, and it's a pond and it sits there with water, doesn't move. Water comes in when the rain comes, and when it doesn't, it sits there. What happens to that pond after a while?
You get a lot of stuff growing in it. You get algae, moss.
It gets stagnant and it gets smelly.
Yeah.
If you take a little pump and you suck water from it and spray it up in the air and drop it back into it, what happens after?
Well, it starts to clean up itself. It starts to, the condition of the pond improves.
Yes, the water begins to get clear. If you have fish inside there, the fish begin to bloom.
Yeah.
Everything inside it begin to bloom. Even the algae grows a nice green, because it is taking, when you spray it up in the air, that water is catching all the oxygen and all the light, all the free negative charges, and dropping it into the pond, and that creates life.
Right.
Life at a higher level, not at the degrading level, at the decreasing level.
Yes.
So, you say, if you're going to do any religious ceremony, it is obvious that you should have water
Right.
as an expression of a connection between you and the creative force.
Right.
You follow me?
No, stop there. Go on.
I keep it simple.
Yeah. I am.
Now, if you are spiritual mother, a spiritual thing, you wouldn't take this water and put it in that vessel to make an expression to God.
No.
Because this water, technically speaking, is polluted.
Yeah.
It have bits of plastic and all kind of things like that, which just mimic hormones and cause a lot of craziness in your body. But you say, We get accustomed to doing that,
Okay.
right?
It's a matter of convenience. Yes.
It's a matter of convenience. Convenience and death.
Yeah.
Right? So, you say, all right, we now understand that all religions, when they're having any kind of ceremony, any kind of ritual, always have water. And water is an expression of continuity of life between us and the Creator.
Yes.
You know, they'd say, we can't go to Mars because Mars is a dry planet. It ain't have no water.
Well,
That's all set up a few years ago.
yeah, they're saying they're finding ice cliffs and
Or you've been
underground.
you've been reading your science, which very few of us does.
Yeah.
They have huge cliffs of water, so they're now saying that when they go to Mars, they have no problems with water.
Yeah.
And when I was a little younger, I used to say Mars is devoid. They went to Mars and they put a little rover and they say it ain't have no atmosphere there, so it ain't no air. And then one day I'm reading and they say it have dust storms.
Yeah.
So I said, how could it have no air and it have dust storms?
Yeah.
And then one of my friends who is into this thing in a big way, when I lived in Miami, took out a picture and he says, watch, look at that picture. He said, look at the horizon. He said, you see that blue haze there? He said, that blue haze means that
Oxygen.
it have air with oxygen and all kinds of things in it. So we're being lied to, as Mr. Trump would say, fake news.
Yes.
Right? So we're always getting fake news about everything around us.
Yeah.
One of the things that brings spirituality, I will not say religion, brings spirituality to the human psyche, the human consciousness, is the ability of the consciousness to externalize itself.
All right.
I'll give you an idea. You know how to drive a car,
Yeah.
right? If you go down the road and you have to buy something in a store, you know how to pull out your credit card or your money and buy something. We're born, and we're born with a brain. And from small, we are taught not only how to think,
How not
but
to.
what to think
Yeah.
and what not to think. And then what they tell us not to think, they put big fences of fear around it so that we don't want to touch it. Right? So I, as a doctor, would come and I'd be listening to people, and they would say, doctor, I can't sleep. And I'd say, why you can't sleep? They say, well, under a little pressure, right? And the thought just keep going round and round and round in my head, and I think I this way, and then I think I that way, and then I think I'm going to sleep and think about this, and then fear just come in when I make this thing up. And I say, well, why don't you stop thinking? So you can't do that. That thought goes on in your mind all the time. Right? And then I said, we spend a lot of time teaching people how to be good servants, how to be good slaves. But we don't teach them how to become independent even of their own thoughts. Because you could pick up any good treatise on meditation, and the first thing they try to do is to teach you how to stop your thoughts. To the extent that when you have somebody and they're going to mourn, the spiritual leader gives them something. What does he give them before they go down?
A word?
A word.
Yeah.
The word mightn't be one word. The word might be a little sentence.
Yeah.
Right? Why does he give them that? Or why does she give them that? According to who's doing it.